Mira Business FM, Dubai's home of business radio.
It's Mira Business FM, it's the morning drive. Welcome. Is the desk officially dead? There's a question for you. As we head towards 2026, work is no longer tied to a single office, a fixed schedule, or even a city, really. Employees becoming more mobile, they're more flexible, they're more focused on outcomes rather than hours. That's a shift now known as the rise of the borderless employee, which is something we're going to explore in the next few minutes. What does all this mean for productivity, workplace culture, and how companies design work? Some of the questions we're going to try and get to with our guest. Hamza Khan is the founder and CEO of Letswork, co-working spaces with free coffee. I read on your website, Hamza, so welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Good to have you here. Your story, first of all, and I wanted to start with this because it's interesting. I can see the progression, and I kind of, pointed towards this just now. But you're a Magic Circle trained lawyer, and that's the big 5 London law firms. Impressive in and of itself. You then transition to entrepreneurships. You serve as entrepreneur in residence at Mira. Now, Letswork, which is essentially a tech industry, isn't it? Am I close? Is that the path? How did that all happen?
That is correct, yeah. So, I grew up in Dubai, and I sort of went on to study law in London, and like anyone there, you sort of, jump on that conveyor belt into the corporate world while in London. And so, while studying law, it seemed like the right thing to do, and I wanted to, I guess, tick that box off and showed that I could, achieve that and work hard to get to becoming a lawyer. So I went down that path, and a couple of years into it, whilst qualifying into the disputes team, so I qualified into the litigation and dispute resolution team at Clifford Chance. I sort of realized that actually all these long hours I'm spending working for other people, I'd love to do that for myself and see what happens. Okay. And so this opportunity came up with MR, who were starting a venture studio lab, effectively to encourage innovation and entrepreneurship within the MR ecosystem. So they set up, the chairman of MR, His Excellency Mohammed Alabar, set up a venture studio called E25, right, where he brought together people under the age of 25 from a range of different backgrounds. So I was a token lawyer. We had software engineers. We had people who had PhDs in land economy and people with business backgrounds with MBAs. And so we were all brought together to work on innovative projects within the MR ecosystem. So real estate, obviously, hospitality, retail, entertainment, all the key verticals that MR sort of works in. And that's where my co-founder, Omar, and that's where we effectively came up with the idea of Letswork, where we saw that increasingly people were working, remotely. People were working from co-working spaces and coffee shops and hotel lobbies and in airport lounges. And so, initially we actually thought of starting our own co-working brand. We thought, okay, let's take up some of MR's commercial real estate and convert that into flexible office space. And then we thought, hold on, you have concepts like Airbnb where you can share use of apartments. Why not create a similar platform where you could effectively share an office? And that's how the concept of Letswork was born. And we started off with this cute little app which helps you find great coffee shops with lots of plugs and good Wi-Fi, and you get a free coffee while working from there. And over the last 6 years, we've effectively grown to become this all-in-one platform for workspace solutions for freelancers and individuals on one end of the spectrum to corporates and enterprises and massive organizations on the other end who all seem to struggle to find and work effectively, find good spaces to work from.
It's interesting that because it's as though, when you move in, you set your meeting room up and you do this, you have your coffee space and you've got your isolation rooms, all these kinds of things that people do now. But there's always a need for something else. So you offer like a desk to a guy like me with a laptop. You would offer a meeting room. There's all kinds of different kind of tentacles out there, I suppose.
Absolutely, and it was sort of like a wild goose chase because we started off, building this app for individuals to find coffee shops, and then those people started looking for meeting rooms as well to hold meetings. So we added meeting rooms on top, and then they started asking for private offices that they could rent for an hour or a day or a week or a month. So we added them, and then those people started growing and started started their own companies and hiring more people. So we added team memberships, and then that team membership suddenly changed to corporate memberships, where we had organizations like Do and E&, and Emirates NBD knocking on our doors asking for flexible workspace solutions for their employees, because hybrid and remote work suddenly became a thing in the last 4 or 5 years. And that's how we've effectively got to where we are today. And then it was a countrywide sort of, a global sort of growth as well. So we started off in the UAE, and then naturally added Saudi, and then added the rest of the Middle East, including Egypt most recently, and now we're in Pakistan, Portugal, and everywhere in between.
You're reaching out. I at the beginning of this, I used the phrase "the death of the desk." And it kind of swings and pendulums, isn't it? Because we're talking about the death of the desk now. We're all remote working, or we're borderless, or whatever it is. We'll get into the definitions a bit later on. But what do you think is driving the shift? Because, you're well placed to talk about this. Why is that accelerating? What's pushing it?
It's a mix of a lot of macro and microeconomic sort of factors, whether it's the influx of Gen Z workers who are a lot more demanding with flexibility. It is the importance being placed on employee engagement, on employee happiness and productivity, and people and organizations being a lot more trusting to employees and allowing them and enabling them to do their best work anywhere. And then you have the rise of entrepreneurs and startups and the gig economy, where people are becoming sort of fractional contractors as well. So it's a whole mix of different things. And then you threw COVID into that as well, right? And that sort of pushed everyone into this norm of working from home. And so now that pendulum, like you rightly said, has gone from fully in the office to fully at home to now settling somewhere in between, where different organizations are choosing the sort of environment that they believe, or the culture that they want to cultivate, which creates that sort of that working environment that's best for themselves and their team members.
It's a mix, I guess, is the best way to do it. And lots of our guests, in particular, one of our regular guests is a guy that owns an HR recruitment outfit. And he offers his employees that, and they tend to do a mix of remote and office work. And he seems to believe that it's the right way forward. Look, you've seen work from corporate law, real top-tier corporate law, to large developers, to startups. What was it that changed your thinking about how and where people were? Because you haven't just jumped into this because it was an option. This was something that you felt was important, I'm getting the feeling.
Yeah, I think it was a seed that was planted in my head whilst in corporate law, where you'd be spending 12, 14, maybe even 16 hours working in an office, just working a desk job on your computer screens, and then I wondered. The sort of stuff that I was doing at the time really just required a setup that that was comfortable, and I had sort of access to just quiet space to work. And then I sort of struggled with the idea of being forced to come into a single place, commuting, like 45 minutes from central London to Canary Wharf, or from where I live in Dubai to DIFC to the office, and then, sitting in that one place. And I thought a lot of the time, I could easily have just done this from home. And so it was that seed that was planted at the time, thinking, okay, that there's flexibility is something that, people need, people want. A lot of people, depending on their own lifestyles or the part, I guess the point in life that they're at, they may need extra flexibility. So new parents, for example, may need that as well, or even a lot of people just happen to travel a lot for work as well. So if you're a salesperson, for example, you're traveling within the city, so going to different offices to meet different clients, and then it just doesn't make sense to then having to commute all the way back to to the HQ when, you could just effectively be working from anywhere on your laptop. And so that's how we really built it. And that's really the ethos of Letswork as well, which is flexibility.
It depends who you talk to, doesn't it? This next question, but demand for flexible work arrangements, I think, are continuing to grow, but there is also this swing towards, well, you need to get back to the office now. There's kind of post-COVID mentality. But do you think hybrid work is the new normal? Is that the kind of standard bearer for how we go now?
I mean, I don't know if there's any one true normal, to be honest. I think every organization has their own normal, and it's just figuring out what that normal is for you. Right. So if you're a one-man show, or if you're a 10-man show, or if you're a 1,000-man or woman show, it's really figuring out, okay, like what exactly, how exactly do I want my company to operate? Do I trust my team members to continue working productively and effectively?
Well, that's the key, isn't it? It's that trust. And I wonder how much that's imparted. You hear that story a lot here that, my boss just won't let me work from home, doesn't trust me to work from home. And I always think, well, that's probably more your boss's problem, or is it your attitude? It's very difficult.
But you can't blame them. You can't blame the bosses as well, because there's obviously people who take advantage of it and maybe just move their mouse a little bit while taking a nap from their bed on their laptop. So or they have Netflix on the side, or they have distractions, whether there's their pets or partners or their kids or whatever it is. So it's really just it's a honest conversation that needs to be had within an organization, and then also within an organization, there's also different dynamics as well, right? So if it's if you're hiring exclusively within the city you're in, or if you're quite flexible with that as well, and you're hiring people across the country, or if you're fully remote and you're bringing on talent from different parts of the world, there's always challenges for every setup, So regardless of whether you're remote or whether you're fully in the office or whether you're in somewhere in between, there's always going to be challenges, and there's always going to be pros as well. So it's just figuring out which ice cream flavor you want to go for, and then pick it.
No, I guess so.
And hope that everyone likes that flavor.
Well, this is the thing, but you have to think very carefully, don't you, when you build a team? I don't know if you build a sales team, for example, and you have some people working in a hybrid or remote fashion. That can affect team cohesion if you've got a mixed presence around. So I guess it is 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I was reading something recently. That was a review of the year, and some of the stats in there. 98% of workers want to work remotely at least some of the time for the rest of their careers. Recent survey done. And what I thought was interesting was flexibility has become a non-negotiable expectation for many employees, coming into the workplace, particularly, the next generation of employees, if you like. Overall, how do you view, what are you told, how do you see the attitude towards remote working here in the Emirates?
It's definitely something that is becoming increasingly encouraged, especially by the government, considering how bad the traffic is here in the UAE. There's been a whole lot of remote working programs or I guess
there have been
structures directives. Exactly.
Look at Ajman government recently.
Exactly.
The directive there.
Yeah. So we've actually been working with the government in multiple ways to figure out a way to offer the best structure, which creates that flexibility, where you don't have employees from Sharjah necessarily commuting all the way to Jebel Ali, for example, when actually you could create tiny little hubs in different parts of the country where you can create that in-person environment for people to work together, but then they're not wasting 3 hours a day sitting in their cars. And it's crazy when you start putting down the numbers. Say 3 hours a day, 200 say work days a year, so that's 600 hours that people are spending in their cars. That comes out to like a whole month of their life that they're sitting in the cars.
Right? From an employee point of view, it's a complete waste of your time. You're not getting those 600 back, are you? And from a commercial point of view,
Yeah.
That's lost productivity.
It's lost productivity, or even if they weren't in the office for those 600 hours, they could have easily been spending time with their family or their friends, or at the gym, or running errands, or having a hobby, for example, in the evenings. Whatever it is, like, people aren't getting that time back, and so I think it's really important that organizations start realizing that the way we think about work, of just like a central sort of point of, or central destination, needs to change. We've seen that in Egypt, where it's virtually impossible for companies to find one part of town that works for everyone. And so we've started seeing a lot of companies effectively create this hub and spoke model, where certain teams, depending on their where they live, or their job function, are actually spread out across the city in these tiny little hubs. And so, and on top of that, not only are they interacting with their coworkers, but they're also, especially in places like co-working spaces, you're then interacting with other people from the country. So you could be an accountant at one company, and you could be working alongside a graphic designer at another company, and you could be then the person after that could be an entrepreneur who's working on their idea, and that creates that extra level of social sort of water cooler chat, effectively. And so that creates that knowledge osmosis, that creates a more dynamic working environment. So I think that's the direction we're really going in.
That's a great phrase, knowledge osmosis.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I'm going to steal that from you, if you don't mind. But the thing is, we have to get to a point, don't we? And I think trust is so key in this. We quantify and we analyze the value of work in terms of hours, and we will pay a rate for those hours. That's how it's always been. There is a shift towards outcomes rather than hours. And it may be that what took you 4 hours before, you can do in an hour. But if you get it done, why does it matter? Well, what also could you do with those 3 hours? So this kind of term, this kind of borderless employee term, is still a little bit pie in the sky.
Yeah.
Isn't it, really? I mean, what does that term look like in real life today, do you think?
I'll give you an example of our organization. So we're a team of 16 people. Half of that team is the tech team, who sit in Karachi in Pakistan, and then our CTO is in London. I have myself and my co-founder here in Dubai, with our head of sales in Dubai as well. We have a few other ops people in Dubai, but then we have customer support in the Philippines and Kenya. And then we have, obviously, because we're an international organization, we've started to hire reps in some of the cities that we have a presence in. So when you have that sort of global or mobile workforce, you kind of then need to figure out, okay, how are we going to work together? So the team in Karachi, for example, I mean, the whole company has a Letswork membership, and we've grown it. We've grown the concept also based on our own needs. So we launched in Pakistan so that the team in Karachi could actually use us themselves as well, and the 2 or 3 or 4 days of the week that they want to work together as a group, they can do so and use the Letswork app to find a mutually convenient co-working space for themselves. And then you have communication tools, right? So especially when you're remote, I think the most important thing is communicating, or even over communicating. So you need to be really, really good at just expressing ideas, at sharing expectations, sharing timelines of when those expectations need to be met as well. And I think that comes, so a remote organization would have its own sort of set of guidelines and rules and structures that you need in place. Otherwise, then it's just a free for all, and then it becomes super difficult to manage. Even time zones as well. If you're working together as a company across 6 or 7 different time zones, like, what are everyone's hours? Is everyone working on local time or central UAE time, or like the middle point for everyone? So how does that work? So yeah, it's a lot of things to think about.
It really is. The mind's moving now. Is the shift, or the so-called shift, this borderless employee shift, is it about flexibility? Is it technology? Or is it a deeper change in terms of how people define productivity? Is it a marked change in how we work? I'm asking.
I think it is, because you then throw in the advent of AI, and how what took 5 people 5 days to do can now take 1 person 10 minutes to do, whether it's really like it's things that would take a very long time, and a lot of sort of tag teaming around and trying to get everyone involved.
Well, your profession is a great example. Your previous profession is a great example of that, the legal profession.
Yeah. The hours I used to spend looking at cases, looking for that legal precedent, searching through, books and going through the library and looking through case law and everything is now, I guess, it's become a lot more efficient.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's so many industries. It's not just law firms, but I mean, there's so many industries which are now at the cusp of, I think 2026, it's quite funny that we're doing this on New Year's Eve. I think 2026 is, I mean, I wouldn't want to call it a bloodbath or anything, but I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with organizations. I think they'll definitely become more efficient, and I think but then a whole bunch of other things come. If you're becoming a lot more efficient, then you can do a lot more. So you can start seeing hyper growth in companies as well, and companies being able to respond to customer needs much quicker and to many more customers rather than a small sort of pool of customers just around you within a 100-mile radius.
Well, I need to get back to bloodbath there because I know what you mean. I mean, it's a little bit over dramatic, but there is potentially going to be a huge change, isn't there? Because AI is now, and much of it is AI driven. AI is now an accepted part of our existence. We now trust it. We Google search and AI comes up with the
summary,
and there you go. You're off. And effectively, I can plan an interview now. I could simply AI it if I wanted to and completely not listen to anything you say and just keep asking the questions that AI has spat out to me, which is probably not the right way to do it. Maybe I should note to self on that. But the point is, AI is going to keep changing, and we're going to have to respond to that.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, and I mean the problem with AI is then if everyone has that little digital twin that's just talking to everyone else's digital twin, then and you're starting to see this on LinkedIn where it's the dead internet theory where I'm using AI to create content, and then people are using AI to then automate their comments, and so based on what that content is, so no one's actually talking to each other. It's just the AI talking to each other's, and then it's just like that you lose that human connection. And I think what's happening now is, and it's really funny because I think, well, when I was a kid, you'd come home from school and then you'd go on the internet. You'd play video games. You would go on message boards, for example, talk about fun things that you're interested in, and so the internet was this mini universe that you would escape reality from. So you escape reality and then you'd go on the internet. Now I think with the onset of run clubs and supper clubs and all these in-person sort of activities, I think everyone's sort of now using the real world to get away from the internet. And so that pendulum is sort of swinging the other way as well, where people are sort of fed up of having screen times of 6 or 7 hours a day on their phones, and now they're looking for real world connection.
Let's hope that's the case. That would be a good thing to see, wouldn't it? Much of the internet's become less than favourable, let's put it that way, in very recent years. Let me ask you about companies. How you obviously talk to lots of different organisations. Do you think companies are keeping up with this kind of change in attitude to work and work space and work environments, or are employees moving a little bit faster than the leadership ought to be?
I guess it depends on the company and how good of a pulse read that they have on the organization and what employees want. I think the bigger the company, the bigger the problems and the bigger the decisions that need to be made, and then the more sort of opinions you have as well. So it really comes down to them. I think it also comes down to leaders and how forward-thinking they are and how I guess open-minded they are as well to new ways of thinking, of how a company, a typical organization should look like, what typical job functions should be, and with coming back to the borderless employee, it's realizing that actually I don't need to rely on the talent pool that's within my 100-mile radius. I can actually rely on people from across the globe at a variety of pay scales as well. So I can find someone really, really good at a cheaper sort of cost to the company to join, or I can find someone really, really good at a much higher cost, but then you find that expertise across, sitting in Europe or North America or Southeast Asia. So it's about that openness and the mindset.
What about the skepticism around flexible work? Because it certainly still exists. There isn't the trust that perhaps there could be, and for good reason in lots of instances, as you pointed out. But from your data, from your experience, are people more productive without fixed desks? Because there is still this thing, I come to work here every day and I've got my little desk there in the corner and it's become habitual. If I was to change that, it would throw me off a little bit because that's my habit. But I have worked as a freelancer in co-working spaces and at home. So it hasn't really bothered me, and I haven't noticed my own productivity such that it is changing. But do you think it's an attitude thing, or do you think people are more productive without a fixed location?
I hate to say it, but it depends. It just depends on the individual.
We're hedging again, aren't we?
Yeah, I guess.
What do you like then when you're working now?
I like structure.
Okay. Do you like to go to one desk every? Do you prefer that, or are you happy to think, right, I'm going to go and sit in this location today, and because I've got a meeting here, I can go and work in that location?
Yeah.
All things being equal, internet speed and coffee availability and all that stuff.
I think I think having figuring out that structure that works for you. So whether it's finding that fixed space and going to that fixed space every day, right. Or if you're a bit of a digital nomad and you like exploring new things and you're not sort of at risk of just being distracted by all the people around you or the new environment around you. I sort of divide my week into, a day where I'm sitting with, the teams that we have here in Dubai. Then I have a day where I am sitting with my co-founder, and it's just me and him one-on-one. And then I have a sort of a day where I don't speak to anyone from the team because I'm out and about meeting the rest of the world. And then I'll have a day where I'm sitting with the team again. And then we'll have a day where it's work from home, and I just want to not be bothered by anyone and just sort of, be close to the dining table because lunch is being served, or I have a personal errand that day and stuff, or I'm going to a particular I'm going out the later at that night, so I don't want to sort of I want to conserve that energy for that. So I think just figuring out what your rhythm is and then sticking to it and then changing it if it doesn't suit you anymore. So we're living dynamic lives now, and I think that the world is constantly sort of changing. So I guess it's a matter of syncing that together.
Okay. I'm asking you difficult questions. I'm not trying to pin you down. It just promotes, it sparks a conversation, I suppose. Let's talk a little bit about workplace culture and the impact on business that has. If more and more employees are borderless, moving around, not really part of the organization day to day, it means companies have to do much more to maintain their, culture, their ethos, their approach to employees, to maintain that level of collaboration, I guess, that they need, that kind of kinship. Because the simple fact is a lot of people go to work or enjoy going to work that little bit more because of the social aspects as well.
I hope that's the case.
I mean, which is, I think, a very good thing because, as you say, we've spent far too long looking at screens. But how do companies do that? How do they promote that when so many more people are not actually in the office?
I mean, the biggest organizations that are remote around the world, they still, regardless of that, still have some sort of in-person interaction happening. So whether that's like a once a year, global meetup, for example, which they allocate a certain budget to, if it's using tools like Letswork for encouraging that in-person sort of interaction, if they're, spread across a country or spread across a region. I think everyone does try to encourage that. And I guess it's also, again, it really comes down to the leadership, right? Like, does the leadership care for culture? Are they really just expecting productivity and they don't really want anything other than that, to be honest, and they just want the work to be done? Or do they actually care about building this organization that has the same values, and they encourage sort of interaction beyond just talking about, whether that file was sent to that person at that time. So I think it's important. I think a lot of one of our team members who joined us recently, and she's been fantastic in sort of helping me think about how to I guess, from a founder perspective, especially in this sort of like hyper growth stage that we're in of selling that Kool-Aid, and she says that Canadian sort of like mentality, right? So selling that Kool-Aid and having everyone sort of drink it, and I think it's having everyone sort of empowered and focused on this North Star as an organization or a company goal, and I think in-person interaction just enforces that even more.
Okay. In terms of The Office, in inverted commas, not the sitcom, but the physical space was a great show, is a great show.
Wait, the American or the British?
Well, I'm going with the British one. I'm going with the original, but I have to say I did enjoy the American one as well. There are many others, aren't there?
Yeah, there's a Saudi one, which was hilarious as well.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, there's some viral clips on YouTube. Check it out.
Okay. But what role do physical spaces still play? The office, these great office environments that we see, because they're still being built and they're still being used. Mm-hmm. How do you think businesses could or should or maybe ought to rethink offices moving forward?
I mean, you're seeing this in massive organizations where they've gotten rid of the mini offices, or they've gotten rid of fixed desks, and now everyone's sort of hot desking around the floor, basically, where you have the CEO sitting a couple of desks down from the intern even, who knows. And
I wonder how good that is.
It's
depends on the CEO.
So at Emar, it was really cool because it was encouraged, and I think it sort of created that level of transparency. Obviously, in some instances it could put a few people on the edge a little bit if everything's just fully out in the open, and you don't know who's walking through where and stuff. But I think it's the like you said, I think the role of the office or what it effectively serves has changed, and so the layout, for example, has changed as well. I had a tour of HSBC's office a few weeks ago, and it's great to see how companies are bringing in. I mean, I don't know. It's not just like the physical realm as well, right? Are people coming in for breakfast? Are people coming in for lunch? Are people coming in for more of that knowledge osmosis by the water coolers? So do we need more water coolers? Are they coming and are they coming in to meet each other, or are they actually coming in to just do those same video calls in a phone booth in the office, which they could have just done at home? So it's figuring out like what that what your company size is and how that serves. I think increasingly companies are also realizing that just fitting things out to a custom sort of style is really difficult, just considering how dynamic everything is and how things are changing. So a lot of people are just opting for co-working spaces, for example, because it's like a ready, fit-out solution that's plug and play, and you can just walk in. You have all the bells and whistles that you'd expect from your own office, but you're just sharing it with other people, and that makes sense because I mean the UAE and Saudi is actually interesting because offices are about 98% occupied, which is the complete opposite of the rest of the world, where in New York, for example, the typical office occupancy is still below 50%. And so you have a lot of dead space. Yeah. So and now you're starting to see a lot of like office buildings in New York City being converted into residential buildings. And you have companies or law firms even in London or Canary Wharf, for example, who are thinking actually we don't need to have this massive tower or this 100,000 square foot HQ. We're actually considering people are coming in about 2 or 3 days a week. We'll have a structure where some people come on these days, some people come on these other days, and so we actually need 15,000 square feet instead. And if we sort of organize it right and we sort of have the right sort of access cards and everything and the structure in place, then it's actually a cost saving. Because if you think about it, the real estate costs or rent, office rent is the biggest cost for a company after payroll.
After payroll, exactly. Yeah.
So if with an increasing sort of focus on profitability, on growth, then your CFOs and CEOs will start thinking about, okay, if this isn't being 100% utilized, how can we reduce it, or how can we rethink it, and then make sure that we're not actually wasting money and space and time on that. And then you have a sustainability as well, right? So if why do we still need a massive HQ and have all that sort of the carbon footprint that comes with that, with electricity being used or whatever it is, why don't we sort of, be more sustainable as an organization? And if we're forcing people to commute for 2 hours, what does that look like for their carbon footprint and how can we reduce that? So yeah, it's a lot of things to think about.
It is, again, a lot of things. The mind boggles. Let's quickly look at 2025. Fast Company article looking back at 2025. Here's a quote for you. I'm interested in your thoughts on this. The overall trends internationally this year apparently reflect a shift towards a more adaptable, human-centered approach to work, where technology and culture work together to enhance productivity and employee satisfaction. It's pretty general, but is it a fair assessment, do you think?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. I think anyone who disagrees with that probably has their own agenda, maybe. But I mean, it's
that would be my take on it as well. Yeah, to be fair. A more adaptable, human-centered approach seems to be the right way to go. How might we be moving forward next year, do you think, given that quote?
I think there's going to be I think the good companies are going to be listening. And I think they're going to be thinking a lot. And I think they will be making faster decisions in order to keep up and in order to continue being the best organization or the most attractive organization for employees to be a part of. And I think the sooner organizations do that, the more likely they are to be able to retain the best talent and attract the best talent as well. So I think a human-centered approach is definitely going to be the most important thing for 2026. And I think the companies that don't care about the people who are part of their teams or who don't have a human-centered approach and have a leader-centered approach are going to struggle, because then those team members are just going to go elsewhere and find an organization that does.
And more and more we're demanding, aren't we? That you consider, that the mental health term comes in, but there is a reasonable expectation that, how you feel should be at least thought about.
Absolutely, and hopefully actioned on. I think the best organizations will put people first, and I think they'll go beyond. And if they say they put people first in their 5 principles or in their mission or whatever mission statement or whatever there is, they're going to be tested for that. And I think a really interesting stat I saw around flexibility as well was that over 50% of people would rather have a flexible sort of workplace policy, or than have a higher salary. So they'd rather have that flexibility than be paid more. I don't know how much that's true, to be honest, because with rising costs, for example, in an expensive city, it depends on the pay. But I think just flexibility is what people want. So I think organizations need to figure out the best way to give it to them.
Yeah, okay. I figure in a city like Dubai, for example, where the traffic can be, it's hard to manage at times. That would feel like a reasonable expectation from people. What workplace trends do you think, this is a tricky question, have a think about this, maybe take a sip of coffee while I put this to you actually. What workplace trends are going to be normal or will feel normal over the next year or two? The ones that maybe at the moment seem a little bit radical. Whether that's, borderless or remote work or, I don't know, specific aspects of the traditional office. What do you think?
That is a tough one.
It is. It's something to ruminate over. I tell you what, let's leave you to think about that. Maybe we'll come back to that.
Sounds good.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Let's go back to the borderless work environment for a minute. The kinds of skills or mindsets that matter most for employees, because a lot of this depends on the company, depends on the employee. But very specifically, if you want to be that borderless employee, and you want to thrive doing that, obviously, you want to do well, you want to strive, what skills or mindsets matter the most?
Organization.
Yep.
Number one.
Yep. Good.
I think you need to be on the ball.
Right.
I think communication again, and if you're if you are borderless and you don't, sort of, again, if you're going to be out of office for an hour, for example, because you're taking your dog for a walk, then mention that to people and just, change your Slack status, for example, to say, I'll be back in an hour.
It's remembering to do that with status, though, because mine's always drinking coffee, and mainly because I'm normally drinking coffee, but I never remember to change it.
Yeah, and I think I think having boundaries, I think, and setting those boundaries that sort of everyone's sort of, again, communicated well. So I think having that around and having structure is as a company as well, that, okay, the expectation is this, and you need to work within it. And I guess people actually abiding by it. And if an organization is going to give you trust, then I think you need to give the organization that honesty as well.
But boundaries is a difficult one, though, isn't it? Because, to say, I work 9 to 5, and I work really hard 9 to 5, but outside of that, don't call me.
Yeah.
The expectations from a corporate point of view might be a little bit different to. That's a really, again, we're back to the trust thing, aren't we?
And then some people even say that actually working remotely means that they actually work longer hours because they are just, constantly glued to the desk, and because they're working, with people across multiple time zones. For example, they'll have a call at 7 a.m. to have a chat with someone in Southeast Asia, and then they'll have a late night call because they need to speak to people in Europe or North America. So I guess it's that you throw that in.
Well, you hear that a great deal here in Dubai, don't you? Because obviously we're in this position where if you're trading with the Far East, you're talking to New York. That's a 20-hour day.
But I mean, it's cool, right? Like, where else in the world are you sort of really smack bang in the middle between East and West, and between cultures even as well? And I think it's a really special place that we're in. From a geographical perspective as well, not just from the incredible city that we're in, from how it's grown over the last 25 years, but just from a location perspective, we really are sort of this bridge.
We're lucky. We're in the middle of the world. Simple as that. Couple more questions for you. We'll come back to the workplace trends questions in a minute. I didn't really mean to put you on the spot, but it's an interesting one because
I'll check ChatGPT.
Quickly get your phone out. Anybody listening to this or watching this or both today to this conversation, particularly from a leadership point of view, what do you think the main takeaway about the future of work is?
The main takeaway is definitely flexibility. Number one, I think as we see a generational shift, as we see the older style of working of people who've been in the workforce or even in that organization for a very long time, as they retire or as they move on, then we're going to have a new generation of individuals with a new set of expectations to manage, to I guess work around and work for. I think some of the best organizations really have leaders who don't have the team working for them, but actually the leaders are working for the team. To really empower them to do their best work. So I think it's those organizations which are going to thrive.
Okay, back to the workplace trends question. Is there anything coming to mind? What will feel normal over the next year or two? That might be a little bit out there at the moment.
Workplace trends. I mean, from a physical realm, I think the borderless employee. I think the outsourcing as well of tasks to contractors. I think that's going to continue growing. I've seen more and more people leaving their jobs, but then staying on, but then retaining their previous employer as a client, actually, and then those employees or those former employees then having multiple clients. I'm seeing more of that now as well. So that sort of flexible work arrangements as well. We're going to see more people with side hustles because we're going to see people who will be working a 9 to 5 at one place, but then 5 to 9 they'll be doing something else because suddenly it's really easy to start a business.
It's
or
possible
at least,
to do it. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think that that flexibility it's going to be compounded in multiple sort of levels and not just from like a physical realm.
Okay. Final question then. 2026, the year of the borderless employee, you think?
Absolutely. I think 2025 was in the Chinese calendar was the year of the snake. So I think it's a sort of old skin, falling off or peeling off.
Very nice.
And then the new sort of, cycle beginning. So I think it's going to be a new sort of mind shift and change.
Always good to end with a nice metaphor. I think, yeah, good. Well done. Hamza Khan with us this morning on the Morning Drive. Hamza is the co-founder of Letswork, a Magic Circle trained lawyer, an entrepreneur in residence at Mira, and now a tech guy as well. Good to talk to you.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you coming in. Thank you. This is The Morning Drive. This is Mira Business FM. Subscribe, like wherever you find us, wherever you come across us. That's always appreciated. Get in touch. Tell us what you think. Don't forget, everything we do is available to listen and or watch again. And find us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Mira Business FM.